your host, Bill Reel.
Welcome to another episode of
the Almost Awakened podcast.
I'm your host, Mekael.
And I'm Bill.
The intro music you just heard was Live in the Moment
by Portugal the Man.
You can find us at almostawakened.org. That is almostawakened.org. So what is the Almost Awakened podcast?
Well, Mekael, having spent a ton of time diving into human development, human behavior, having deconstructed unhealthy systems and communities, and having built a vibrant, healthy community where authenticity and vulnerability matter.
We want to share with you what we've learned, point you to good books, provide you with tools and resources to help you awaken, and share with you our experiences in shadow work, in recognizing our ego, and working to reduce its impact.
So buckle up, sit back as we lean into being awakened.
At least, co-host Mekael.
And I'm Bill.
And today we've got Cory Reese on the show with us. Before we get started with Cory, Bill, maybe I'll ask both of you. I've been thinking about what it must feel like to be a white, European, patriarchal male who struggles with opposite sex attraction, who's got super cushy running shoes and custom orthotics. Can you just maybe walk me through like a day in your life? I don't understand it.
Yeah, you said the cushy shoes because I told you to walk a mile in those shoes. These are, like, you forgot white privilege too.
Yeah, I mean, I just assumed that people would know that all of that is enmeshed and entangled together.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's almost a burden, really. It's difficult.
I don't understand it. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, be honest. I mean, how many safe spaces are there out there for white males?
I don't find too many myself.
No, which is the reason, Cory, I was going to check with you. It's the reason we wanted to start a new club. We actually have a fundraiser. This is a GoFundMe that's up. And what we're trying to do is we want to create a club where alpha males can connect. Because honestly, there's just not enough safe spaces for alpha males.
Especially those who suffer with opposite sex attraction.
Yeah, it's difficult when you struggle with opposite sex attraction. I've always wondered my whole life what it would be like to live with same-sex attraction, but unfortunately I struggle with opposite sex attraction, and it's a burden. It is. It's difficult. We're being sarcastic, obviously, but there is a sense that we as a culture don't really realize the white privilege. We don't realize especially white males. We got it easy, don't we?
Yes. We don't have too much to complain about.
No. The running shoe, you talked about these orthotic shoes. What kind of shoes are you wearing, Cory?
Right now I don't have any shoes on, but I usually I like some Ultra shoes that they just fit well with my feet. So, yeah, that's what I use during the day and while I'm running.
Yeah, you're a runner. Mekael, tell us, we've got this guy on here. Why did you pick Cory? What makes him so special?
Because Cory is just one of those people that you could talk to about anything, and he just has this way of making you feel comfortable. He has a way of making you feel safe. He's funny. He's got great hair. How could you not?
That's an important thing for you, Mekael, is great hair.
It is. And squishy earlobes.
Squishy earlobes.
Why, thank you.
So we've been saying it several times here on the podcast, Mekael, we've talked about this guy we know who did this insane thing where he runs 300 and was it 14 or 17 miles?
14.
314 miles, and you did it in 8 days.
Yep.
To me, this is insane. I guess I want the audience to hear, a marathon is what, 26 point something?
Yeah, 26.2.
26.2. And you ran more than 26.2 on average for more than 8 days.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk about, who does that and why does somebody do that?
Those are hard questions to answer. The people that I did it with are just totally normal people in everyday life. One guy that I spent a lot of time with was a NASA scientist. Teachers, audiologists, just average normal people that want to kind of test their limits and test their boundaries. And then when they reach those limits, see if it's possible to push a little farther. So, it's a race across Tennessee. It actually crosses through 5 states, but mostly Tennessee, and just goes all the way across the state. And we were given a map of the route that we had to take. and you have 10 days or less to do it. So there was no aid stations, no crew following along to make sure we were okay. We just had to carry everything that we would need for that whole time. And then we just stopped at like gas stations and fast food restaurants for food and water along the way. Sleep when you need to sleep, move when you can move.
What was the furthest you'd ever run, had ever done something like that prior to this thing?
I've been building up to this for quite a few years. I mean, I didn't know over the past few years that this is what I was building up to, but for quite a few years I started out doing a couple half marathons and then built to marathons and then just kind of grew from there. So for the last few years I've been doing 100-mile runs and got to a point where I knew kind of what to expect with that distance. Not that it's ever easy. 100 miles is always really hard, but I at least knew how to train and what to expect. So a couple of years ago, I ran this 72-hour race where it was on a 1-mile loop, and you just do as many miles as you can in that 72 hours. And so I got up to 205 miles.
Holy shit!
But that was like kind of, I mean, obviously a totally different situation, a different environment. So that was the farthest that I had run before this point.
Cory, you said that you, when starting this 314-mile race, that people, they go to their limit and then they push a little bit beyond that to see if they can have a new limit. So, one, what makes a person want to push their limits? And two, once you get to your limit, how do you know you can go beyond that?
I think it's just, I don't know if it has to do with running itself. Like I remember training for my first half marathon and I got up to 6 miles and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am incredible. Like I just ran 6 miles. That is insane to me that a human body can go 6 miles. And then you're just like, well, okay, maybe I can go 7. And so I think maybe it's just it just kind of gets into your blood with running where you just want to see what's next. I don't think it's anything special, innate to me where I want to test my limits. I think probably all of us have that inside of us. I mean, you get kind of comfortable with your job after a while and you think, okay, maybe I want to push myself and see if there's something beyond what I'm doing now. Or I don't know, maybe in a relationship you kind of get comfortable and know what to expect. And so it's good to kind of grow and do something different. So I think that's part of what makes me want to push my limits. When you get to that limit, I think that's really where the growth happens, because you reach a point where it's like, I can't go any farther. And so you either drop out or you keep going. And if you can push yourself to keep going, that's when change happens. I've done both of those. I've come to what I really felt like was my limit and just felt like I really can't go on any farther. And I've dropped out of races. And then I've also had lots of times where I get to that point and I think, okay, I need to not think about the fact that I still have 60 miles to go or I still have 200 miles to go. I just need to focus on this mile that I'm in right now. I need to not stress out about the future, because that is just downright depressing when you realize, oh my gosh,
Sure.
I've still got like 6 days out here.
Oh,
My skin is melting. I'm so hot. I'm so tired. If you think about the fact that you've still got 6 days, that'll make you start crying.
right. You said, Cory, and this was super interesting to me, that you didn't feel like this ability to push beyond your limits was something that's innate, that you don't feel like this is anything special. But I think in looking at people in general, I think that has to be something that either you have some sort of innate ability and then you cultivate it, because looking around at people in general, I don't see many people running 314 miles or even 6. Sure, there's runners and people that do awesome things, but in general, in my experience, I don't see people that are cultivating that ability to push their limits.
Maybe, yeah, I see that side of it. Maybe it is something that's innate in all of us, and we don't utilize it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We're talking about being, the podcast is about being awakened, and you're hitting on this idea of being present in your running. Like, your body's telling you there's no way in hell I'm doing 6 more days of this. Maybe talk for a moment. Like, what's your practice in those moments to be present? How do you not go like, all right, my body's done. My body's hit a wall. There's 6 days left. This is useless. And instead you're focusing on like, I'm going to run 10 more minutes and then I'll revisit this. Or I'm just going to run for the next 30 seconds and I'm just going to take this 30 seconds at a time. Like, what's your practice in the middle of doing that?
What I do, kind of going into it, I just try to embrace the idea that it's going to be hard, it's going to hurt, there's going to be some suffering involved, and I just go into it knowing and expecting that, so that when it comes, it's like, okay, well, I knew it was coming. It's not a surprise. It's not a problem. I can work through this. So there's that preparation side of it, just knowing, okay, it's gonna be hard, but that's okay. That's why I signed up for this. That's why I wanted to do the race in the first place, was to get to the point where it gets hard and then to push myself. When I'm in the moment, the little tricks I do, I think in the moment it's important to stay positive and smile.
Your skin's melting off, Cory.
Right.
You've got these huge ass blisters on your feet, and you're smiling.
Well, the thing is, sometimes you don't really feel that smile, but when you're smiling, it releases endorphins. I'm a social worker, and I took all these psychology and social work classes, and research shows that just the act of smiling releases endorphins that help you feel better. And so even if you're sometimes faking it, it helps. And if you, on the other side, if you just are feeling sorry for yourself and complaining and whining and focusing on all the negative things, it just makes it so much harder. So I think staying positive is important. Granted, sometimes that's easier than other times. So that's one thing. The other things that I do, I try to avoid catastrophic thinking. So I fall into that really easily. I mean, that's so normal in everyday life, but with running, the way it shows up is like, oh, I've got this big blister. It's hurting so bad. It's so hot out here. How am I gonna keep going? Like, if I keep doing this, the blisters are just going to get worse. I'm only going to get more tired. I'm only going to get slower. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to run any faster.
Sure.
And it just like tumbles. It spirals down. So that catastrophic thinking, it's so destructive in running and in life. So I really try to catch when I start getting into that and just stop it right away.
We were talking about this last night, Cory, in a different way. We were talking about like this idea of being in the past or in the future, right? That's all ego-based. We're telling ourselves these stories of who we are and what all these things mean. And we were talking last night in Mekael's kitchen. There's the 6 of us there chatting. And 3 of us were saying like, no, let's just live in this present moment. Let's just enjoy it. And the other 3 are like, I struggle so deeply with this. I'm so worried about the future. And you and I were talking last night as we were talking about this subject, and I said, if we sweat, if we worry about, if we think about the million possibilities that are out there in the future of how this could all go south, most of those don't happen. In other words, you worried about how bad your blisters were getting and how slow you were going to get. And in the end, all of that worrying didn't matter on that end because you finished the race and you're okay today.
Yeah, exactly.
Are your toenails gone? Did they fall off?
I didn't lose any toenails. My blisters are still
healing.
They're still healing.
Shit.
So you said talk about staying present in the moment.
Yeah, talk about staying present. Talk about maybe maybe with running or even with just life in general. How does that come easy for you? It comes easy for me. It comes easy for Kelsey, a little easier. Whereas Amanda, my wife, Mel, your wife, Mekael, no, not so easy, right?
No.
What makes us all different that way?
I think I've gotten better at that. I think it helps to practice that. I don't feel like I was always that way, and I still have my struggles. It still pops up where I just notice myself dwelling in something in the past or worrying about something in the future. It's so easy for the mind to just naturally go there. I think I've gotten better at recognizing when that happens and then pulling myself back. The way that I've done that, I mean, really, I've noticed it most in the last year, just reading a couple books like The Untethered Soul, The Power of Now. Those books were just light bulb moments for me. They made me think about staying in the present in different ways than I had ever thought about before. And then I've gotten into a little bit of meditation. I'm still such a rookie with that. I still have so much to learn, but I've touched it enough to know that there's power there. So I think those are some of the things that have helped me to stay more present and not get focused on past or future. What works for you guys?
So last night when you guys were over, I had a moment where I was spiraling, and it was in regards to you and Kelsey were talking about death, and it still just pisses me off. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it because it's so unknown, and I crave certainty. I crave at least having some idea of what's going to happen after we go. And part of that is because I love Kelsey so much. I don't want to have this existence be over and not have her, in after being dead. We were talking, I got angry, I got upset, and so I left. You and Kelsey were outside laying on the grass looking at the stars, and it just pissed me off. And I came in the house and was crying. I was so upset. And I remembered you and Bill talking about staying in the present moment and that it does no good to worry about the past or the future. And so I did. I had to stop myself and tell myself, like, why am I thinking about something when all my friends are out, they're out in the kitchen having a great time and I'm in here pouting and being sad? That's not what I wanted. I wanted to be with my friends and laughing and having a good time. And so I think that what you said is super key. We have to catch ourselves in those moments and pull ourselves out.
And it really can happen that fast, which is so crazy and so important to remember. This happened just a few days ago. I can't remember if we told you this. We went out, me and Mel were running, and we ran like 2 miles, and it was hot and hard. And Mel came home and she was feeling so discouraged. Like I was so slow. I was so tired, and she just was feeling so down on herself, and she just kept going deeper and deeper into feeling sorry for herself and feeling bad. And I said, okay, wait, how many people do you know that can't go run 2 miles? She's like, well, a lot of people can't go run 2 miles. Okay, how many of your patients would kill to be able to go run 2 miles? She's like, well, yeah, some of my patients don't even have a leg. Like, so right now, you were able to do that. You were able to go outside, run 2 miles in the fresh air. We got to spend time together. She's like, oh, that's right. Okay. I have a lot to be thankful for right now. And it was just such a fast shift. So it can happen really fast if we just recognize it and we're willing to make that shift instead of staying stuck in feeling sorry for ourselves. Like sometimes I think we just like that feeling of feeling sorry for ourselves, which is so dumb, but we like it. We do want to stay stuck in it.
The other interesting thing, Cory, is that for me, in regards to last night, like 2 choices were present in front of me. I could keep feeling sad and being miserable and try and suck other people into that with me, or I could go and have fun and stop wasting my time and my energy on worrying about other things. And so you get to choose where you're going to invest your energy.
Somebody recently said that we treat the present like it's the past. In other words, in our present moment, all we're worried about is getting to the next present moment, right? We want to get to that thing that we want to do. Like tomorrow's a party. I can't wait till tomorrow. Oh, I've got to get this done, or how's that going to work out? And what we end up doing is we end up just wasting the moments we're in because we're somewhere else. And as you pointed out, you could have gone inside and just continued to spiral out of control and essentially had the whole night be ruined, or you could rejoin the present moment and enjoy it because it's right there in front of you anyway.
Yeah, it was much better. Like, the night was much better making that choice. So much fun last night.
I was impressed with how quickly you shifted that.
It's a practice, like you said. I never used to be good at it. It used to be me spiraling down, and I'd stay stuck there for days or sometimes weeks or even longer. And part of it is Bill helping me see the unhealthy, coping mechanisms and unhealthy behavior. And then a lot of it has just been me making a conscious choice and choosing where to invest my energy. And because we only have this life, as far as I know, and because I only have what's in front of me right now, I'm going to choose to be right here, right now, as much as I can. And like you've said, we all mess up, and sometimes I'm really good at it, and sometimes I'm really shitty.
I wanted to make sure I got in during this conversation. You had mentioned a little bit ago, Cory, that you're involved in social work. And to set running aside for a moment, when I think of what people see in that line of work, all the dysfunction, I work at a pawn shop. I'm a pawnbroker. And I see a lot of people in our society who are really struggling. Mental illness. I see people who have drug addictions. I see people who are struggling to parent children in healthy ways. And as I sit back and watch it, I only have to watch it for a few minutes and then it leaves. But in your line of work, you're dealing with that dysfunction face to face. Maybe talk for a moment about what goes on in your line of work and what you see, and more importantly, maybe how you deal with seeing that dysfunction up close.
And Cory, I'm interested in how you got interested in social work. Like what kind of led you to choose that as a career?
That's a good question. I don't know how deep you want to get into this. I think it probably clicked when I was pretty young. So my dad committed suicide when I was 14. And so I remember going to a counselor maybe twice, maybe once, maybe twice. I can't remember. And I never really felt like it was that helpful. I didn't feel like I got much out of it, probably because I had no idea what I was supposed to be getting out of it, or I don't know. I mean, I was young. So, but as time went on and I got older, I thought that could be pretty powerful to help people when they're in those really dark places. And so I just kind of got that idea in my mind and started working at a teen treatment facility, which I loved. I really loved working with those kids. And now I'm doing medical social work. And I think it gives me an advantage to have been through some of that stuff. Not that I would ever want to do it again, but I think it made me more compassionate, maybe more understanding of the struggles that people go through. So in a normal day, I see people facing really huge health issues that I just can't imagine going through myself. I see people working through depression and anxiety and financial stuff because they're not able to work anymore, problems with paying for their medications. Gosh, I just admire these people. I work at dialysis centers, and I just admire these people so much because it's such a huge life change to have to be doing these treatments every other day for the rest of their lives. So, that's my day, is just spending time with these people all day.
In terms of like staying positive, because I think you're a positive guy. I see you always smiling. You always seem happy. You always seem, as you pointed out earlier, trying to be present in the moment. How do you, when you end the workday, you've seen a bunch of things that on one level or another, you see the struggle of humanity. You see people having a hard time trying to just day-to-day survival. How do you kind of put that behind you and then go home and maintain your positivity?
What's worked for me, gosh, it keeps going back to the being present thing. So when I'm at work, I'm pretty good about, like, I don't read my texts from my kids. I don't usually answer calls from them. I kind of put my phone aside and I try to just really be present at work. I try to be there for my patients. I try to get everything done that I need to at work. I want to be there. I want to do what I need to do there. And then when I leave, I try to just leave it all there. I leave it in my office, get in my car, go home. And then when I'm home, I try to be really present there. I try to not get on my work email and work on work stuff at home unless it's something that's really urgent, but that has come with practice. It wasn't always like that for me, but it works for me to just really focus on what I'm doing and not let those distractions get in the way of stuff. So if I'm home, I try to be really present at home. If I'm at work, I try to be really present at work. And I'd really try as much as possible to just leave it there once I leave work.
I love that. I love that because I'm on my phone a lot, whether it's at home, doing work stuff or checking in with friends or, doing any number of things. So I love that idea of just kind of putting that away and being present in the moment, and giving that attention to your time, and time to your wife and family. That's cool.
And I don't at all want to make it sound like I have this figured out and I'm
Sure.
so perfect at it all the time. I know what I need to do. Sometimes I'm better at it than others.
Sure.
I work at it.
So Cory, this is kind of an unrelated question, but what would you say your most dateable quality is? Besides the hair.
Oh gosh. Most dateable quality. I feel like I'm pretty compassionate and caring, and I would say I'm not at all judgmental. I'm pretty accepting and try to love people for who they are and where they are. So I guess if I had to choose something.
Not your eyes or your smile?
I don't know.
Bill, what's your most dateable quality?
I don't know that I have any good dateable qualities.
Shut up.
Man, that's a tough question because you're asking a human being to kind of brag about themselves a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think we do enough
and
of that.
I love when other people share their things because it lets you get to know them better. But man, it's kind of a struggle to share. I don't know. You go first. What's your most dateable quality?
I'm fun.
You're fun. You are fun.
That is true.
Man, what do I got? You tell me. What's my most dateable quality?
No, I'm asking you, Bill.
Ooh, snap.
So I'm going to steal some of what Cory said, which is I don't perceive myself really as judgmental. People can have their shadows and stuff in front of me, and I actually enjoy messy humans. I like the fact when humans are being vulnerable. And so I think generally people perceive me as a safe space to just be themselves. But
I would agree.
okay,
I agree.
There we go. That's it then.
On a scale of 1 to 10,
On a scale of 1 to 10.
how weird are you?
Cory, how weird are you? I'm not going to answer that. Cory, how weird are you?
I would say I'm a strong 8.
Oh, dude, me too.
1 to 10, 10 being really weird. You guys are 8s?
Yeah.
I think so.
Man,
I think
okay.
Bill, I think if you're not going to admit that, you're probably a 10.
Dang it. I don't perceive myself as an oddball. But the other day, I mean, I'm at my house, you're at my house, Mekael, and my daughter's going to pick up pizza, right? And I'm blowing up on the phone with her because the pizza people are telling her that she's at the wrong address. And so you
That was
grab your
fun.
keys and you're like, let's go. And so I get out in the car and I sit in the passenger seat. And you're like doing shadow work with me on the way to pick up Little Caesar's pizza. And I realized like, damn, I have these shadows and mechanisms that make me kind of an asshole at times. And so,
Or weird.
yes, or weird. And so, yeah, there's more there than I want to admit.
It's okay, Bill. We still love you.
We still love you.
Good.
Well, Bill, I was having a hard time waking up this morning. You know how it goes. You stay up too late partying or hanging out with friends.
And then you've got to get up early to record a podcast. So what do we do in those instances?
And on every other day of the week,
Coffee.
Red Roca coffee.
It helps you and me as we're awakening in the morning.
My favorite brew is Heathens or Good Mojo. And sometimes I like it hot. In the summertime, every once in a while, I'll drink it cold.
Red Roca Coffee is a small family-owned business here in the United States.
If you need a cup of joe to help you awaken,
Give Red Roca Coffee a try. We're sure you'll like it.
we're sure you'll like it.
That's Red Roca, ROCA coffee.com. When you place your order, put in the code AWAKE.
AWAKE.
You'll get a 10% discount, and you'll get free shipping on orders over $30. Check out Red Roca Coffee today
Again, Red Roca coffee.
for those times when you need help awakening.
So, Cory, what do you think the most common reason is for people failing or giving up? And it can be in running, it can be just in life in general.
Well, I think most of the time giving up is that I'm thinking specifically of the running stuff right now, but I'm sure it applies to other areas. Giving up is just the easy way, and when you're really up against a wall and it's really hard, it's hard to just take that next step and be willing to embrace the suffering. It's just easier to not. I have seen so many times over the years doing this running stuff, the people who push through that and keep going, they feel proud of themselves. They feel like they accomplished something. They worked hard. The people who listen to that voice that says to quit, those are the ones who have regrets and wish that they had kept going and feel like there's unfinished business. So I've never met anyone who decided to keep going and finish a race and regretted it.
No regrets.
That's the tattoo I'm going to get. I'm going to get that on my shoulder. No regrets.
Explain.
Well,
It's spelled
yeah,
wrong.
it's spelled wrong. No regrets. So RAGRETS instead of regrets.
Okay.
And so by having no regrets tattooed on my arm, which it was in the movie. What was the movie, Mekael?
I don't know.
It was a bunch of strangers pretending they were family and going across the country in a camper or something. But in the movie, this kid's got this tattoo on his chest that says no regrets. And what I love is the irony. So if you intentionally put no regrets on your arm, it's spelled wrong. And so every time you get out of the shower in the morning and you look in the mirror and you realize this tattoo spelled wrong, you can't regret the fact that it's not right. Like there's always going to be things in your past that aren't right. There's going to be things that are metaphorically not spelled right. And to look in the mirror and say, like, I'm not going to have any regrets. Like that kid accidentally got his tattoo spelled wrong. And now he actually has to live with the mantra of not having any regrets. I think there's a lot of power kind of in that concept.
And you getting a tattoo like that is almost like accepting and embracing that everything's not always perfect.
I'm not going to live in a space where I have to. We've all made mistakes. We've all done things wrong, and yet doing those things wrong has led us to where we are today. I'm not going to live in a world where I look in the past at my mistakes and continually wonder, like, oh, what if I had done this, or what if I had done that, or I wish I hadn't done this. I just don't think that's helpful. I think it's good to look back and go like, oh, I'm glad I learned this. I'm glad that it came back to this space. I'm glad that I am who I am because of those things. I just don't think it does any good to dwell on our mistakes in negative ways.
We talked about this last night, Cory, with you and Mel, before Bill and Amanda had come over. We were talking about kids and how rough they are sometimes and how, like, the mistakes that we've made. And you know, I know that Kelsey and I have talked about this with Bill and Amanda as well. Like, we're all doing the best that we can until we know something different, and then we do better. And sometimes that better looks fucking amazing, and sometimes it looks super shitty.
Yep.
And we were saying, Mekael, too, that, like, you look back at your childhood and you have some dysfunction with your mom and dad, and there's always this hurt we carry about things our parents missed the boat on, or things our grandparents didn't spend the right amount of time with us, or whatever all of that past history is. And yet, as you're saying, all of us, your parents included, my parents included, Cory's parents included, all of our friends, all of the people we didn't get along with, like, we're all just doing the best we can.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I accepted that concept that everybody's just doing the best that they can, it allowed me to release all of the blame that I wanted to place on my parents. You know, I could have blamed them for a lot of things, but in doing that, it almost freed me in a way. It made things better. It's been really nice to just know that they did the best that they can. Yeah, sometimes it was really shitty, but that was their best.
Can I ask you about your dad, Cory?
Yeah, sure.
So you said your dad took his life, and maybe it's that same idea, like he was doing the best that he could. Whatever his experience was, it brought him to that moment, and he was doing the best he could. And yeah, I'd love to know, like, how you processed that when it happened, And I'd love to know, maybe now that you're where you're at today, you look back at that, like what are your thoughts about that entire situation?
I think that's really where the idea of people doing the best they can solidified itself for me. So he was going through marriage stuff with my mom, and my mom had moved out, and so that was difficult for him. I know that was a big challenge. And then he also had a lot of health issues. He was diabetic. He had this ulcer in his foot, and they were talking about maybe amputating it, and then maybe having to amputate the other foot. He was in constant pain just all the time, day and night, and I think that he just eventually got to a point where it was too much, and so he took his life. And looking at it then, I mean,
how old were you?
I was 14, and so at that time, I just felt so sad that he was gone, of course, but I never blamed him, because I could see where he was coming from. I heard him crying at night out of pain, and I saw how much he was hurting. So I just never felt judgment or anger against what he did, because I could understand where he was coming from. I didn't like it. It hurt. It was hard, but I could understand it. So yeah, I think he probably was doing the best he could. And I know that sometimes people get to a point where that mindset takes such a strong hold of them that they feel like that really is the only solution. I see that now. And so I can understand it. I don't like it, but I totally understand it. And not that I would ever want to go through that or recommend people go through that, but it really, I think, shaped a lot of who I became. It showed me that I can get through hard things, and it made me stronger. And like I mentioned, I think I feel a lot of compassion for people. So it shaped a lot of who I became, I think.
I've got another question, but I wanted to give you a chance, Mekael, if you had anything.
No, I just can't even imagine what it must have been like to experience that, and to see how you've processed and come out on the other side. To me is amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I like that you see positive qualities in yourself that maybe they're kind of rooted in that experience when you're a kid and something traumatic. I think it's impossible to get out of this life without being traumatized. I think to receive trauma is to be a human being, and to take that trauma and to find positives in it, I think really is the best that we can do with the bad things that happen to us.
Yeah, totally. Like, that's my little story. That's my little trauma. But everyone has their story. Everyone has their trauma. You're exactly right. And so I think we have a choice to let that trauma that everyone has destroy us, bring us down, or we can choose to say, okay, this really, really sucked. How can I use it to my advantage? How can I grow from this? What can I learn from it? We all have our stuff.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier the two books, and I remember one of them you said was The Untethered Soul. I think that's Michael Singer, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep, that's right.
Very popular book. It's a book that I've heard mentioned numerous times. I've not read it myself, but now you've said it, so now I'm going to add it to Audible today. Maybe talk for a moment about that book, and then what was the other one?
The Power of Now.
The Power of Now.
And do you Eckhart Tolle.
Okay, yeah, and I've read Eckhart's A New Earth.
Yep.
Listened to his podcast with Oprah.
Yeah.
On his book, and love his work. Maybe talk about those two books and the impact that they had, or what you really loved about those two that kind of struck you.
The Power of Now is what introduced me to the idea of just how often our minds just naturally wander off of something from the present, because I think it happens all the time with everyone, and I just never really thought about why that was problematic. It just never occurred to me. I had never even thought about why that might be a bad thing, and why it would be important to stay in the present. So reading that book was like, holy cow, that's crazy. I have a problem with this. And so that helped me to just recognize, okay, there is this issue here, and here are some things I can do to work on it. The Untethered Soul, he talks about the voice in our head that's just chattering nonstop, and doesn't shut up. It's self-critical. And he just talked about how that voice is not who you are. That's just this voice. He said to think of it like an annoying roommate that just does not shut up. And I thought about, oh my gosh, I have that roommate, the roommate that's always talking, always judging myself, always worrying about the future or past, and not staying present. So both of those focus on that idea of just being present right now and taking advantage of the time, because like you mentioned, you have no idea what's going to happen in the future. You can't even plan for what's going to happen. I mean, it's good to have some ideas, but getting stuck in that is wasting right now. So those two books really opened my eyes on that topic.
I loved what Bill said last night when he was like, you could think of a million different possibilities, none of which are likely to ever happen. I find that in my worrying stages, that's what I do. I think of every possible scenario, every possible situation. I think of the 5,000 ways it could go. And it was so interesting because it like Bill said, it hardly ever happens. And I have found for myself, when I can stay present, my stress level decreases drastically. It could be really easy for me to stress out and worry about what's going to happen tomorrow and all the things that I have to do and all the possible things that could happen in those moments. But if I just stay present, I can breathe. I don't feel anxious. I don't feel stressed. It's much easier for me to be happy and to feel happy rather than all the stress. I really liked, I've read The Untethered Soul, and I liked how he mentions just seeing your thoughts go by like a car, instead of like letting that car park in front of you. Just watch it drive by. You don't have to attach anything or hang on to it. Just see it drive by. It's such a good book.
Yes.
And if you're off worried about everything that's going to happen, and again, those moments never happen exactly the way you're planning or worrying about them, you're actually missing the one moment that is happening.
Right.
Like you're so worried about moments that never will happen, you're missing the moment that is happening right in front of you.
Yeah.
I just find, like last night, we're sitting at your house, we're sitting on the couch, and we're just all cuddled together, and we're telling jokes, and we're laughing, and we've got arms around each other, and we're just like, there wasn't any deep conversation necessarily. It was just being present, and it was like the most satisfying experience. Like whenever I have those experiences where a group of us are just close and being present and having some good laughs, those are the best moments on the planet for me. And the secret is the present. The secret is being right there, right then, enjoying. You were holding my hand, Mekael. I had my arm around Paul, and it was just, Kelsey was making contact with me. Cory was right next to you, and so I was touching him a little bit on his shoulder, and it was just like, wow, like these are good people. I'm enjoying the intimacy of this experience. I'm enjoying the present. I'm enjoying the laughs. It was just the funnest thing, and that's the thing I want to do every day. And really, nothing got accomplished. Nothing happened. It was just good people enjoying a present moment.
I got a good ab workout from laughing so hard.
Yeah, my stomach is sore right now. I noticed that just as you said that. Like my gut has a sensation to it that it says it was overworked last night.
And it was crazy because we weren't talking about anything really. And I'm sure thinking back on it today, like the stuff we were saying really wasn't that funny, but last night it was.
Yeah, we've got a friend. We'll have him on at some point, but Chris Bloxham. And when Chris and I first met, Chris was so interested, and me too, by the way. We were both just so interested in meeting people and talking about deep subjects and examining history or examining existential questions. And that lasted for a while. And then I just noticed one day, and I said to him, I said, you notice that we're not having those deep conversations anymore, like once in a while, and they're great. But that's not what we're craving. We're just craving the human connection and the being present. And those deep conversations seem to drift off because I think they distract us from the present moment. When you're in your head thinking through deep stuff, you're sometimes struggling to be right there, right in that moment.
Right.
And so those things tend to not be as interesting as they used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have any good insight. Just, I agree.
Any thoughts from you, Cory?
Well, what, like for the listener, what has helped to get to that point of staying present? Like what are some takeaways? I know a couple days ago when I was talking to Mel, she had that aha moment of, oh yeah, I'm like getting sidetracked. I just need to stay present. And she said, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a couple signs and I'm just going to tape them like on the fridge or on the bathroom mirror to just remind myself to stay present. What works for you guys to help pull you back there?
So for me, it's Kelsey. She is really good at staying in the present moment and not worrying about yesterday or thinking about tomorrow. And so she'll often remind me, just be like, hey, babe, just be here. Just be like, just focus on this. And she'll tell me everything always works out. So in those moments when I'm having a hard time staying present or I'm feeling a lot of stress, communicating with her and just verbalizing it, sometimes just getting it out for me will help. And then her reminder, like everything always works out. And whatever that looks like, I have no control over except how I'm choosing to respond to it. And so just let go of the expectation and the worry. And then again, I just have to remind myself in those moments, just make a choice. What am I going to choose right now? So that's what I do.
The secret to me, and it maybe happened somewhere between maybe a year and a half to 3 years ago, is I just became aware of what it meant to be present and what it meant not to be present. And so all of a sudden it was like, it's almost like you could step outside yourself and you could look at a situation and you could say like, oh, I'm not being present right now. And I just constantly, when you're aware of it, then I would step in and start to constantly remind myself. And my mantra is, I'm right here, right now. And when I say those words, it just sinks me right back into enjoying the situation for what it is and letting go of all the stories that are attached to it. It has come somewhat natural, but I'm 40 years old and I've been deconstructing stuff for 8 to 10 years now. And there just became a point a year and a half ago to 3 years ago. And again, I think a big part of it is hanging around other people who are also leaning into and talking about and reading things and thinking about and wrestling with the idea of being present. Well, yeah, it starts with a pair of lesbians, right? Is a pair of lesbians 4?
No.
Okay, just a
it's 2.
So 2.
it's how every good relationship should start, with a pair of lesbians.
With a pair of lesbians.
Lesbian friends.
I'm an advocate. You know, I'm a big. I definitely want to vote for that one. Everybody should have a pair of lesbian friends, which is 2.
Mekael, I think what you said about having Kelsey pointed out to you, I think that's a great tool. Like, that's a conversation that me and Mel have had. Like, okay, if you see me wallowing in this stuff or like getting sidetracked on something that's not important, I'm open to you pointing it out. I want you to point it out if you see it, because sometimes I don't see it in myself.
Right.
And she said the same. So if you can have that conversation with someone that is working on it as well and can be open to it being pointed out when someone notices it, I think that's a great strategy.
Yeah.
And I noticed last night, you two, that we talk about gossip and it's as a binding mechanism in a society. But if we notice for a moment, anytime we're gossiping, we're also in the past or the future, right?
Sure.
Like we're telling a story about how somebody did something before or how you heard that something's going to happen in the future because of what they did in the past. Like gossip stops you from being present. And so I notice sometimes, like if me and my wife are talking and all of a sudden I sense the conversation starts to go off in that direction, I'll look at my wife and say, I think we're just telling stories. Like those are just stories. Like let's just be here, right now, and let's not worry about what's going on that we don't see. Let's not worry about what happened in the past. Like let's let the stories go. And again, I think it just leads you to being present, which allows you to take advantage of every moment as it's right there in front of you.
Yeah.
I agree.
What else? What other areas you want to cover?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Cory, what's something that you're curious about right now? Like what interests you? Where are you headed? What's new?
Gosh, you ask tricky questions. Okay, you mentioned being weird. I have this goal this year to read or listen to 100 books, and I think I'm at 80 right now.
Dude, that's awesome.
I know, I'm loving it. One of the books that I listened to a while ago was called Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, I think is what it's called, by Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I understood maybe like 4% of the book, but it was so fascinating to me, just with him talking about the universe and how things were formed and all of that kind of stuff. And I just was so interested in that. And then that led to a couple books by Stephen Hawking, that just his take on all of that astrophysics stuff. I just am so interested. I'm so amazed that there are people that smart that can figure stuff out. So I've just been watching YouTube videos and Netflix stuff about the universe and stars and planets, and that's something
awesome.
that I've been interested in. Super nerdy, but it's interesting to me.
That's cool.
The rumor on the street is you're a flat earther.
Is that the rumor going around?
That's the rumor, yeah.
I will neither confirm nor deny that rumor. No.
I assume you're not a flat earther.
I am not, no.
Okay. I know you well enough, and I know what experiences you share with the experiences that Mekael and I have had in deconstructing systems, and I didn't think you were a flat earther.
No.
What is something you used to believe, and again, I don't necessarily want to talk religious stuff, maybe just whether it's politics, whether it's just a view you had on a social issue. What is something you used to believe strongly that this awakening process has moved you to something very different?
I think the biggest thing, so over the last year and a half, my wife and I have chose to leave the Mormon church. And so I think one of the big shifts that's happened is I felt like I had the answers. I knew what I needed to do. I had all the answers for everything. I knew what was going to happen if I did the right things. I knew what to do. And now I feel like I have no answers. I don't know what I believe at this point. I don't have any answers, and I love it. I love the exploration of finding my own truths and what works for me. And before, I think I would have felt like not having the answers would have been so scary, so uncomfortable. The idea would have frightened me. But now that I'm in that, where I feel like I have no answers, I don't know anything, I like it. I like that freedom to find my own truths. So that's one of the things that I believed so firmly, that I had all the right answers. I knew what to do, and now I don't know anything, and it's actually okay.
And you're still somehow an amazing and awesome human being.
Well, so you're saying that religion doesn't make people awesome human beings?
I'm saying that there are awesome people in and outside of religion. So I think that you brought up a really good point. You know, one of the things that I really loved too was certainty and having all the answers. And there are certain aspects where I like not having the answers, and then there are others that totally piss me off, like we talked about last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and you named it, you're both kind of hitting at it. In that first half of life, not only do you have all the answers and you have this certainty, and that certainty is what gives you your peace and comfort, but you're also aware that, like, oh, if I were to be disrupted in that, everything that's good in my life might disappear, and that's super scary. Like, I need to have this certainty. I don't want to, like, there's a lot of risk in even thinking about what it would mean to let that go. And then you also seem to have this judgment at times for others who are on the other side of that, and you're like, oh, you know, that can't be real happiness, or that can't be, it's got to be really hard for them. And the reality is that when you really do deconstruct it and let it go, and you let go of all your certainty, and you move into spaces where the questions themselves become beautiful, and you don't need the answer, or you're okay with like 10 different people in a room having different answers, it wasn't really anything to be scared of in the first place, was it?
It wasn't.
That's like a journal entry of mine right there. That describes how I felt exactly. I was so scared to move in a different direction. And I mean, that was all that I had ever known. And I remember that the night that we decided, okay, we're going to choose to leave, I just, after Mel went to bed, I just laid in my bed and cried like, oh my gosh, my life is never going to be the same. I'm abandoning the beliefs that I've had my whole life. And it was so scary, so hard. And it has just been a really eye-opening and freeing experience. And the fears that I had didn't need to be there.
I think what it comes down to in those moments where we're scared is that we're really focused on what we're losing.
Yeah.
We're focused on, like, I'm going to lose my community. I'm going to lose my beliefs. I'm going to lose some of my relationships with loved ones. I'm going to lose something. But we don't even have any clue what we're going to gain. Like, we don't even know what's in front of us. Something comes back. Some things come back, and then new things come in, and we don't even know that those things are going to happen. And so I just find, like, if I let go of the fear of what it is I'm leaving behind and just grasp onto the fact that, good things are going to come from this too, I don't know, that seems to be helpful for me.
I agree. Me too.
Let me ask this kind of maybe as we work towards a conclusion here for this conversation, Cory. So there are the listeners, the people that are listening to this episode. A lot of them aren't even interested in running. Hopefully, they also sense that in talking about running, we're talking about life. I think that was apparent. And you've offered, like, how do we push through walls and how do we stay present? But maybe your advice for listeners, if they're on the front end of this awakening process and they're beginning to, like, think about what it means to deconstruct systems and to be present and to recognize ego, your advice towards listeners as they're in this process, like, because you don't know it on the front end. You don't know what works and what doesn't work, and you're learning all of this stuff for the first time. Any advice from you on helping people to lean into waking up?
My advice, just based on my experience with the transition that we've gone through with faith stuff, is take some time, take it easy. Don't let it overwhelm you. It's easy to just kind of get overwhelmed when you maybe start to question things a little bit, and sometimes you fall in that rabbit hole and just keep falling and falling and falling and learning more and more, and it can be overwhelming. So I would say just kind of take it easy. The other thing that I think is so important is to find safe people to talk to. It's really it can be really lonely to be in that point of questioning what you do and don't believe and what direction that you're going to go. That's a really hard, lonely point. And so I think it's so important to find people that you can trust and that you can open up to. You guys have been such a huge resource and support for us. We love you guys. And so, yeah, I think it's just so critical to find that safe person that you can talk to and bounce ideas off of, and just have someone that you can release that energy and emotion to.
Yeah. So safe spaces and take your time. I think those are great pieces of advice, because you're questioning so many things that it can be overwhelming, and yet the process will resolve itself. It may take, for some people it takes months, for other people it takes years, but on the other end of it, like, yeah, I'm just grateful that I took the time that I did. And like you, I'm grateful for friends like you and Mekael and others in our group who are just safe spaces to be yourself around. Good stuff. What's your next thing as far as running? Do you have another thing you're going to do here soon that you're going to tackle?
I don't have anything I'm signed up for right now. Me and Mel may go back to Wisconsin to do this race. Actually, we're signed up for another long one in Tennessee. But we're kind of on the fence about whether we're going to do it. So we'll see. Nothing major at the moment. I'm just kind of taking it easy, letting my blisters heal.
You guys are rock stars, man.
No.
Yeah. I think running is a lot like life. And I think you've got a lot of things you've learned doing that you've shared today that point to running for you and running for others being kind of symbolic of the challenges and stuff that we get in life. Because we carry some blisters with us for a while. from the trauma and from the other things that happen in this world. And I just think that there's lots of lessons to be learned. I think this was fun. For me and Mekael, I think having different people on and whatever their thing is, your thing's running. And I think we all can learn things from what other people's experiences are. And I don't run. And yet some of the things you've learned from that have been helpful, I think, to me in these conversations that we're having.
I thought,
go ahead.
I thought that this show was about white patriarchy and how it feels to wear the shoes that you get to wear. So this was so fascinating for me to get that perspective.
Yeah, you're white too, Mekael.
I am white, but I'm lesbian.
Okay, so you're half privileged.
Yeah.
Okay.
My shoes aren't as cushy as yours, but yeah.
A good pair of shoes is important, both for running as well as for life.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it. That's the advice. That's what people are going to get out of this. I listened to Almost Awaken this morning. I'm going to go out to Skechers and get myself a nice pair of shoes. Should we close it out?
Let's do it.